An alien girl named Zyra plummets through the sky, her descent marked by a trail of flames as her ship crashes into the strange, vibrant landscape below. Disoriented and struggling to breathe, she stumbles out, overwhelmed by Earth's thick, unfamiliar air. Every gasp feels heavy, and each sound around her seems amplified, a symphony of alien noises. Trees tower overhead, dense and dark, their canopy obscuring any sense of safety. She scans the surroundings with her wide, reflective eyes, struggling to comprehend what kind of hostile world she's landed in. Her suit, crafted meticulously for environments far gentler than this, begins to flash warning signals. Earth's atmosphere, thick with moisture, particulates, and toxins her species was never exposed to, tests every limit of her equipment. Filters in her breathing apparatus are overwhelmed, and she feels a burning sensation with each inhale. Her ship, the only semblance of familiarity, smolders in the distance, half submerged in the murky swamp. She's alone, exposed, and utterly unprepared. Staggering forward, she attempts to walk, but her body strains under the oppressive pull of Earth's gravity. Her species is accustomed to lighter worlds, places of gentle winds and silken skies, and her limbs begin to ache under this unrelenting force. Every movement requires effort. Each step is a battle against her own biology, which now feels like a prison. But she pushes on, fueled by a primal instinct to survive. Soon, the alien girl encounters Earth's life forms. At first, they're small, chittering insects that swarm and bite, leaving her skin irritated and inflamed. She brushes them away, alarmed by how quickly they react to her presence, as if drawn to the scent of her foreign physiology. She scans her surroundings again, hoping for a path, a way forward, anything that might offer her shelter or safety in this strange place. Suddenly, the underbrush rustles, and she freezes. From between the trees, she catches sight of something moving, a creature, large and powerful, covered in thick fur. It growls, its eyes fixed on her with an intensity that makes her blood run cold. She recognizes, even without knowing its species, that this creature is a predator, and she's just announced herself as prey. Zyra's heart races, her instincts screaming at her to flee, yet her body feels trapped, weighed down by the unrelenting gravity and her deteriorating equipment. The beast moves closer, sniffing the air, its eyes narrowing as it assesses her. Zyra tries to back away slowly, each step careful, each movement deliberate. Her breathing quickens, her thoughts racing. She activates her last defensive measure, a thin, nearly invisible energy shield that encircles her body. It's weak, designed for minor deterrence, but she hopes it's enough to buy her a few seconds if the creature attacks. But the beast doesn't retreat. Instead, it lunges, claws outstretched, teeth bared. Zyra's shield activates on impact, sending a flash of energy through the air. The creature stumbles back, momentarily stunned, but the shield's power dwindles immediately, draining what little remains of her suit's energy reserves. She realizes the shield is no longer an option, it's her or the creature now. Desperation takes over. She grabs a nearby rock, her alien fingers trembling as she struggles to grip it in the heavy air. The creature circles her, growling deeply, its eyes filled with a primal hunger. Zyra knows her strength is waning, her body failing under this relentless pressure. But survival instincts kick in, urging her to fight, to cling to life even in this nightmare world. In a frantic bid for survival, she hurls the rock, hitting the creature squarely on its snout. It recoils, shaking its head in surprise, giving her a brief moment to escape. She stumbles backward, tripping over roots and rocks, her every nerve screaming for rest. But there's no time. She pushes herself to her feet and begins to run. The forest around her becomes a maze of shadows and tangled foliage, each step pulling her deeper into the unknown. Her legs feel like lead, her lungs burn, and her vision blurs from exhaustion. The creature's growls fade into the distance, but her fear only grows. Zyra's suit, now damaged and drained of power, no longer offers even the smallest protection. Her alien skin is exposed to the elements, vulnerable to the rough textures and unforgiving terrain. She's alone in a world that seems to reject her very existence, every part of it alien, hostile, and utterly indifferent to her survival. As the adrenaline fades, the reality of her predicament sinks in. She's a stranger here, lost in a land that's both brutal and beautiful in ways she's never known. Zyra moves deeper into the forest, the oppressive air pressing on her chest, each breath feeling more laborious than the last. The atmosphere buzzes with sounds, chirps, growls, and rustling leaves that keep her on high alert, her every nerve attuned to potential threats lurking in the shadows. She walks cautiously, trying to stay silent, but Earth's wild environment seems to conspire against her. The ground beneath her is uneven, tangled with roots, and she stumbles repeatedly. Her alien physiology, built for gentler worlds, struggles against the terrain, and every step feels more taxing. As she continues, the weight of her vulnerability grows. On her home planet, she was among the apex creatures, but here, every rustle of leaves or sudden movement sets her heart racing. The idea of being prey is foreign to her, but Earth's life forms don't hesitate to assert their place above her. She catches sight of creatures perched high in the trees, their eyes reflecting the faint light, watching her with predatory curiosity. She knows they're analyzing her, assessing whether she's a threat or potential prey. An eerie silence falls as she navigates a narrow path through the dense vegetation, and it fills her with dread. Earth's life forms seem to operate in packs, constantly observing and strategizing, and it dawns on her that she is entirely alone in a world that thrives on collective survival instincts. Her senses are heightened as she passes by trees towering over her, each creak of a branch or scuttle in the underbrush setting her nerves on edge. She's hyper-aware that every sound and movement could be her last warning before an attack. In the distance, she spots a group of strange beings moving deliberately, humans, she realizes with a chill. They are clad in simple, rugged clothing, carrying weapons that she cannot identify. She watches them intently, trying to understand their intentions. They move with a precision and purpose that makes her feel exposed and vulnerable. They seem to be tracking something, their eyes scanning the ground, their movements practiced and efficient. Zyra can sense their power, their ability to navigate this unforgiving world with ease, a stark contrast to her own struggle. She realizes these beings are both highly organized and potentially lethal. Attempting to stay out of sight, Zyra moves slowly, her every instinct screaming to keep her distance. But she underestimates her own presence in this foreign land. She accidentally snaps a branch underfoot, the sound echoing louder than she anticipated. The humans freeze, their heads snapping in her direction, eyes sharp and focused. Panic floods her mind, and she feels trapped, like prey caught in a predator's gaze. Her heart pounds as she crouches low, hoping the shadows will conceal her, but the humans have already begun moving toward her with purposeful steps. Zyra's breathing becomes erratic as she considers her options. She can't outrun them in her weakened state, nor does she have any weapon to defend herself. The realization sinks in, she is completely at their mercy, and they are closing in, unaware of her alien nature but sensing her presence all the same. The humans approach cautiously, speaking in low tones that she can't understand, yet their intent is clear. They are hunters, accustomed to tracking and capturing. She's overwhelmed by their power, their ease in this environment, and the predatory glint in their eyes that feels all too familiar. A surge of survival instinct kicks in, and Zyra tries to melt into the forest's shadows. Her movement is slow, deliberate, but every inch feels like a battle against both her fear and the terrain. She holds her breath, muscles tense, hoping to evade their line of sight. The humans scan the area with calculated movements, seemingly determined to locate her. Every second stretches painfully, the anticipation nearly unbearable, her mind racing through every possible escape route. The humans eventually lose interest, their voices fading as they shift their attention elsewhere. Zyra releases the breath she hadn't realized she was holding, relief washing over her momentarily. But the encounter leaves her shaken, painfully aware of her helplessness. The humans were unaware of her true form, but that didn't matter. To them, she was just another creature in this merciless ecosystem, a potential target or threat to be dealt with. She resumes her journey, her limbs heavy and mind clouded with dread. Earth's world of predators and prey feels relentless, a cycle of survival she cannot escape. The forest around her feels alive with intention, each creature playing its role in a brutal hierarchy. She is at the bottom, a strange invader in a world that wasn't made for her, and every encounter reminds her of her fragility. Her only goal now is to find a moment of safety, however fleeting, in this ceaseless nightmare. Zyra presses onward, her body rebelling against every movement. The unfamiliar weight of Earth's gravity leaves her muscles aching, each step draining her energy faster than she anticipated. Her skin, unaccustomed to Earth's rough foliage, begins to show signs of irritation from scratches and exposure to unfamiliar plants. Every inch of her feels battered, and her suit has long since stopped functioning at optimal levels. The air, thick and damp, makes her breathing labored, and every inhale burns slightly as her body struggles to adapt to this hostile atmosphere. Desperation grows as she realizes she needs shelter. The open forest offers no protection, and every passing second feels like an invitation for more threats to emerge from the shadows. She stumbles upon a small, abandoned structure, its walls decayed but standing, providing some semblance of refuge. Inside, she encounters remnants of human life, objects whose purposes are entirely foreign to her, rough and strange. Her alien gaze sweeps over them, a mix of curiosity and dread filling her mind as she realizes these artifacts are from a species clearly designed for survival and perhaps even conflict. Every object tells her something unnerving about the humans she narrowly evaded earlier. Their possessions suggest strength, durability, and an almost primal ingenuity. She realizes they are creatures who've mastered this world in ways her kind would never need to. Their tools, however primitive they seem by her standards, exude a kind of raw, ruthless functionality. The knowledge unsettles her, and the cold realization that she's a stranger among beings who know how to thrive here deepens her sense of vulnerability. Alone in this temporary refuge, Zyra's thoughts spiral into despair. The overwhelming silence and the alien artifacts around her amplify her isolation. Back on her home planet, she'd have never known such desolation. Her people lived in harmony, without the constant threat of predators. Here, though, she's not only an outsider, she's utterly outmatched. Her body wasn't built for this place, and neither was her mind. She feels small, weak, and hopelessly out of place, the weight of her own fear pressing down on her. Exhaustion forces her to rest briefly, her mind racing as she tries to comprehend her position on Earth's merciless hierarchy. Her species once believed themselves advanced, existing in environments with few natural threats, but here, everything challenges that belief. She realizes that Earth's survival dynamics operate on a different level, a brutal, unyielding test of resilience and adaptability. The reality sinks in that she has no control here, no power to assert herself as she could back home. Here, she is only prey. With time to think, she begins to understand the human's place in this world. They're at the top, yet they don't seem to rest. The artifacts, weapons, and the structure she's taken shelter in suggest they live with a constant vigilance, always prepared to face danger. Unlike her species, who evolved in peace, these humans evolved through conflict, and that instinct is embedded in everything they touch. Even their tools seem to carry an unspoken warning: survive or perish. She feels exposed in this fragile shelter, fully aware that it's only a temporary reprieve. Her thoughts return to the forest outside, teeming with life forms that view her as vulnerable and alien. She's at the mercy of creatures who've never known kindness or peace, creatures who navigate this world with an efficiency she can't comprehend. The humans may have moved on, but their presence lingers, a reminder of the threats she'll face if she ventures out again. As she considers her options, her mind turns to the stories she's heard about primitive worlds, places where life is harsh and beings evolve with ferocity just to survive. Earth was always thought of as one such place, a world her people only observed from afar. Now, trapped within it, she grasps the reality of those tales. Earth isn't merely dangerous, it's structured around a constant struggle that shapes every creature within it. She begins to see herself not as a visitor but as an intruder, forced to confront the brutal truth of Earth's hierarchy. Her energy dwindles, and she fights to suppress her fear. The idea of moving back out into the forest terrifies her, but staying in this fragile shelter seems just as dangerous. She realizes that, no matter where she goes, there will be no true refuge here. The entire ecosystem pulses with hostility, every life form geared towards survival at the expense of anything weaker. The concept is foreign to her, yet inescapable here. Earth demands adaptation, and Zyra knows that to survive, she must play by its rules, rules that go against everything her species holds dear. Zyra forces herself to push past her dread, acknowledging that her only chance lies in understanding this place on its own terms. She begins to see the forest and its life forms differently, recognizing the subtle signs of Earth's harsh beauty. The leaves rustling overhead, the distant calls of predators, even the abandoned artifacts around her, all serve as reminders that every creature here has earned its place through struggle and persistence. The thought both frightens and inspires her. She prepares to leave the shelter, bracing herself for the challenges ahead. Every movement feels deliberate now, her mind focused, her instincts sharpened. She knows she'll need to rely on every ounce of her strength, and even that may not be enough. Earth is a world of relentless survival, a test of endurance she never anticipated. But as she steps forward, she resolves to face it head-on, determined to prove herself against a world that has never shown mercy. Zyra's journey continues with each step a struggle, her body wearing down from the unyielding demands of Earth's environment. She's forced to move through a terrain that punishes her alien physiology, every muscle aching under the oppressive gravity. Her senses are sharpened, and her mind races, constantly aware of her own vulnerability. As she pushes forward, the faint sound of movement in the distance catches her attention. She freezes, dread pooling in her stomach as she realizes she's not alone. Something is tracking her, and she knows instinctively that it's no harmless creature. The figure emerges, a human hunter, moving with the quiet intensity of a seasoned predator. Zyra watches as he scans the surroundings, his posture alert and confident. His movements are purposeful, revealing his experience with the terrain and his role as a dominant force within it. Unlike the humans she encountered earlier, this one exudes a focused, singular intent. He's here with a purpose, and she realizes with horror that she's likely his target. She attempts to remain unseen, slipping into the shadows as her breathing becomes shallow, every instinct screaming at her to remain motionless. The hunter moves closer, his gaze scanning every corner, his steps controlled, each one bringing him nearer. Zyra's heart pounds as she tries to calculate her chances of escape, but the reality is grim. Her strength is depleted, her body barely able to cope with the gravity, and her alien physique is no match for this relentless pursuer. She feels trapped, caught between her failing physical state and the silent, calculated approach of a creature who knows this world inside and out. The hunter pauses, his eyes narrowing as he senses something out of place. She can tell he's picked up on her presence, the subtle cues she unintentionally left behind in her desperate attempt to navigate this hostile landscape. A broken branch here, a disturbed leaf there, tiny signs, but enough for a skilled tracker. Zyra curses her lack of knowledge, understanding that she's left a trail without even realizing it. She tries to slow her breathing, to steady her nerves, but the fear of being captured consumes her. A standoff ensues, silent and tense. Zyra knows she cannot outrun him, nor does she have any means to fight back effectively. Her last defense, the weak energy shield she'd used against the beast earlier, is now completely depleted. The realization that she has nothing left to protect herself hits her with a cold finality. The hunter remains motionless, his senses attuned to the slightest disturbance, and she knows he's waiting for any sign of movement. Any mistake will expose her, and she'll be completely at his mercy. The moments stretch on, her muscles aching as she struggles to remain still. She tries to think of any possible escape, but every option seems futile. She considers surrender, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her, but the thought of becoming this hunter's captive, of being at the mercy of Earth's dominant predator, is too terrifying to entertain. She realizes that humans are not merely animals of survival. They are creatures of calculated dominance, masters of this brutal world in ways she can barely comprehend. Then, the hunter moves, his gaze locked onto the area where she hides, his footsteps slow and deliberate. Her heart races, the sound of his approach amplifying her fear. Zyra knows this is it, her moment of truth. She has no other choice but to try and evade him, knowing that a direct confrontation will only end in her capture. Summoning her last reserves of strength, she begins to maneuver away, each movement painstakingly slow, every breath silent. She hopes he won't notice, but she feels his presence behind her, his gaze sharp and unrelenting. She manages a few steps, her muscles screaming in protest, but the hunter's persistence is unyielding. She hears him moving closer, adjusting his path to intercept hers. Zyra realizes he's aware of her every move, reading the landscape with an understanding she lacks. His expertise is undeniable, his focus unbreakable. The contrast between them couldn't be clearer. He is a product of this environment, hardened by its challenges, while she is a mere visitor, struggling to survive. A branch snaps underfoot, and the sound shatters the silence, echoing through the forest. The hunter's head snaps up, and in that moment, their eyes meet. His expression hardens, a mixture of surprise and calculation as he registers her alien form. Zyra's heart sinks, knowing that her cover is blown. In one swift motion, he moves toward her, his posture exuding confidence and control. She turns and bolts, adrenaline fueling her exhausted limbs, but the chase is brutal, and every second brings him closer. The ground beneath her feels unstable as she runs, her vision blurring from fatigue. Her alien physiology, never meant for Earth's relentless terrain, falters, and she stumbles, barely managing to stay on her feet. The hunter closes in, his steps steady and calculated, each one a reminder of her imminent capture. Her breath comes in ragged gasps, her energy reserves depleted, and she knows she can't keep this up. Just as she feels herself slowing, on the brink of collapse, the hunter suddenly halts. He observes her, as if weighing his options, perhaps curious about the strange creature that led him on this relentless chase. Zyra uses the moment of hesitation to gain a few precious feet, but the gap between them is minimal, and she knows it won't last. He finally turns away, as if deciding that she isn't worth the trouble, or perhaps sensing her desperation and sparing her. Zyra watches him retreat, her body trembling from exhaustion and fear, and realizes the depth of Earth's danger. She's encountered a true predator, one that operates on a level of mastery that her own species has never faced. This encounter has shown her the extent of human resilience and adaptability, and she understands now that survival here is a privilege, not a given. As she catches her breath, her mind reeling from the narrow escape, she grasps the profound threat that Earth and its inhabitants pose. The humans are apex predators, and she is nothing more than a fragile, out-of-place being in a world that doesn't tolerate weakness. This realization shakes her to her core, embedding a sense of dread that will follow her through the rest of her journey on this hostile, unyielding world. Zyra's encounter has left her drained, yet with an urgent sense of purpose. She knows she can't linger any longer. Her only chance is to make it back to her ship and escape this brutal world. Every step is a struggle as she moves through the dense forest, her muscles aching under the gravity that still feels unnatural and punishing. Her alien physiology is failing against the constant strain, and she can feel her energy reserves dwindling with each labored breath. Yet, driven by a primal need to survive, she pushes forward, her mind singularly focused on reaching the only sanctuary she knows. The forest feels darker, every sound amplified, as if the world itself is a living, breathing entity aware of her presence and relentless in its hostility. She navigates carefully, avoiding any disturbance that might draw attention. Her senses are heightened, every nerve on edge, as she moves through Earth's unyielding terrain, aware that every moment in this environment threatens her survival. The need for caution wars with her desperation to escape, yet she manages to find a rhythm, moving quietly, conserving what little strength she has left. As she approaches the area where her ship landed, Zyra is confronted with the full reality of her situation. Her vessel is half buried, its structure weakened from the crash and the harsh environment. It's far from the refuge she hoped for, and the thought of attempting to repair it under these conditions seems almost impossible. Her technology, so advanced in her own world, is fragile here, unable to withstand Earth's relentless forces. Still, she has no other choice. This vessel is her only chance, and the thought of staying on Earth indefinitely fills her with a dread that propels her forward. She examines the damage, her mind racing to recall the repair protocols ingrained from her training. She understands the basic requirements but lacks the proper tools and resources that would usually be at her disposal. Her suit's systems, meant to support her in inhospitable environments, are nearly drained, and the energy reserves needed for a successful launch are critically low. Yet, she refuses to succumb to despair, forcing herself to focus on even the slightest possibility of escape. Determined, she begins the repair process, her movements careful but swift, trying to conserve energy. Her hands work mechanically, and each task feels heavier than the last, Earth's gravity forcing her to expend twice the usual effort. She adjusts wiring, stabilizes structural points, and manages to bring a few essential systems online. It's an exhausting process, each minor success tempered by the understanding that any error could end her chances entirely. But she pushes on, her focus unwavering, the grim reality of Earth's dangers fueling her determination to leave. Time slips by, her exhaustion reaching unbearable levels, and just when it seems her body might fail, a faint flicker of power surges through her ship's console. It's not enough for a full launch, but it's a spark of hope, a possibility that she can escape this hostile planet. Zyra channels every last bit of her energy into coaxing more life from her failing systems, adjusting configurations to prioritize essential functions. Her focus sharpens, her mind disregarding everything but the goal of escaping Earth's clutches. With one final effort, she initiates a launch sequence, her heart pounding as the ship shudders, fighting to lift off against Earth's gravity. She feels the pressure against her body intensify, a weight unlike anything she's known, threatening to crush her. But the ship rises slowly, breaking free from the ground. The world beneath her begins to recede, the dark, looming trees giving way to open sky as she ascends. Relief washes over her as the distance grows, the hostile world becoming a landscape below, shrinking with each second. As Earth fades into the distance, she reflects on the ordeal, the memories vivid and unsettling. She understands now that Earth isn't just a dangerous place, it's a world where survival demands relentless resilience, where every creature is forged by the brutal forces of nature. The humans, with their primal instincts and advanced adaptation, are the true rulers here, creatures she now respects as formidable beings shaped by an unforgiving environment. The experience has marked her, reshaping her view of existence and survival. In her world, life was safe, predictable, and harmonious. Earth, in contrast, is a relentless crucible, a place that challenges every weakness, forging strength through necessity. She realizes that the humans she encountered are not merely intelligent, they're honed by their environment to survive in ways her own kind could never fathom. Earth's beauty is a dangerous one, a beauty that conceals the constant undercurrent of struggle and survival. As her ship clears Earth's atmosphere, she allows herself a moment of quiet reflection, grateful for the sanctuary of space and the familiarity of her vessel. The harsh lessons of Earth are imprinted on her, a reminder that she is, ultimately, an outsider in a universe filled with unknowns. Her species may consider themselves advanced, but Earth has taught her that true strength is born from enduring hardship, from facing adversity and overcoming it. She looks back one final time, her gaze settling on the blue and green planet that nearly claimed her life. A mix of awe and fear fills her, and she realizes that Earth, for all its danger, possesses a unique allure, a world that challenges and tempers every being within it. As she prepares to chart a course back to her home, she knows she'll carry these memories with her, a testament to a world that has both terrified and transformed her. The experience has altered her perspective, a profound reminder of her own vulnerability and the strength of those who survive on Earth. She may have escaped, but the scars remain, a silent acknowledgement of Earth's uncompromising nature.